Hare Krishna. Vanchikalpatribhyascha Yatra Sindhu Dhyeta Pratichinam Avevyo Vaishnavavyo Namaha. So welcome to our continued reading of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada's, what he calls his summary study of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we're up to chapter 8, the vision of the universal form. However, we'll chant a little bit. This is the mantra that Prabhupada has in his introduction. Lord Chaitanya's chanting of another way of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Krishna, 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 Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Krishna, 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 Rama, Ragdeva, Rama, Ragdeva, Rama, Ragdeva, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava. I'm going to go back a little bit because this chapter 8 begins with after this incident. So you may not remember the incident, but the incident was, of course, the previous chapter was Trinavarta, who got it's interesting because Yashoda picked up Krishna and she found he was heavy and he was getting heavier and heavier. And that's because when Trinavarta came, who was the whirlwind demon, and carried him up into the stratosphere, Krishna got heavier and heavier and the demon crashed to the ground and fell down dead. And so that getting heavier was a little sort of his getting heavier was just a little preliminary hint of what was going to happen. So here, at the very end of the Salvation of Trinavarta chapter, this happens. I'll just read the last paragraph. After this incident, that is the killing of Trinavarta, when Yashoda once was nursing her child and patting him with great affection, there streamed a profuse supply of milk from her breast, and when she opened the mouth of the child with her fingers, she suddenly saw the universal manifestation within his mouth. She saw within the mouth of Krishna the whole sky, including the luminaries, stars in all directions, the sun, moon, fire, air, seas, islands, mountains, rivers, forests, and all other movable and immovable entities. When Mother Yashoda saw this, her heart began to throb and she murmured within herself, "How wonderful this is!" She could not express anything but simply closed her eyes. She was absorbed in wonderful thoughts. Krishna showing the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even when lying down on the lap of his mother, proves that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whether he is manifested as a child on the lap of his mother, or as a charioteer on the battle of Kurukshetra. the concoction of the impersonalist that one can become God by meditating or by some artificial material activities is herewith declared false. God is always God, and in any condition or status, and the living entities are always the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. They can never be equal to the inconceivable supernatural power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this chapter, the vision of the universal form, second time that there's a universal form. So after this incident, now I'm reading from chapter 8. After this incident, Vasudeva asked his family priest, Gargamuni, to visit the palace of Nanda Maharaj in order to astrologically calculate the future life of Krishna. This is something else that's typically done with a child in traditional India. Gargamuni was a great saintly sage who had undergone many austerities and penances and had been appointed priest of the Yadu dynasty. I noticed Nanda Maharaj is down in the boondocks, in the pasturing grounds, but his place is called a palace, and he's called Maharaj, even though he's actually a Vaishya. Anyway, when Gargamuni arrived at the home of Nanda Maharaj was very pleased to see him and immediately stood up with folded hands. This means like this. This Prabhupada's not like this. It's just Kritanjali, it's called, hands like this. Immediately stood up with folded hands and offered his respectful obeisances. He received Gargamuni with the feelings of one who is worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He offered him a nice sitting place, and when he sat down, Nanda Maharaj offered him a warm reception. Addressing him very politely, he said, "My dear Brahmana, your appearance in a householder's place is only to enlighten. We are always engaged in household duties and are forgetting our real duty of self-realization. Your coming to our house is to give us some enlightenment about spiritual life. You have no other purpose in visiting householders." Actually, a saintly person, or Brahmana, has no business visiting householders who are always busy in the matter of dollars and cents. The only reason saintly persons and Brahmanas go to the place of a householder is to enlighten him. If it is asked, why don't the householders go to a saintly person or Brahmana for enlightenment? The answer is that householders are very poor-hearted. Generally, householders think that engaging in family affairs is their prime duty, and that self-realization or enlightenment in spiritual knowledge is secondary. Out of compassion only, saintly persons and Brahmanas go to householders' homes. Nanda Maharaj addressed Gargamuni as one of the great authorities in astrological science. The foretellings of astrological science, such as the occurrence of solar or lunar eclipses, are wonderful calculations. And by this particular science, a person can understand the future very clearly. Gargamuni was proficient in this knowledge. By this knowledge, one can also understand what his previous activities, what his previous activities were that are causing him to enjoy or suffer in this life. They can, in other words, read from your chart what was happening in your previous life that caused your current enjoyments or sufferings, as well as the future. You can see the past, if you know what you're doing. Vedic astrology is very, very specific, precise, but you do have to know what you're doing, because it really tells you exactly things that are happening. It doesn't just tell you your character is like this or your character is like that. It tells you what will happen. And some of us who have had some experience in India with good astrologers they do it like that. Nanda Maharaj also addressed Gargamuni as the best of the Brahmanas, in quotation marks. A Brahmana is one who is expert in knowledge of the Supreme. Without knowledge of the Supreme Absolute, one cannot be recognized as a Brahmana. The exact word used in this connection is Brahmavidam, which means those who know the Supreme, capital S, very well. An expert Brahmana is able to give reformatory facilities to the subcastes, namely the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas. The Shudras observe no reformatory performances. The Brahmana is considered to be the spiritual master or priest for the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas. The Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas had very strong cultures that were passed down and learned to do these things. Another word for Shudra is general assistant, although there are Shudras who take care of, assist the ones. Like Ramananda Roy was actually technically a Shudra because he was a civil servant. Notice the word servant, but a very expert one. So there are different kinds of Shudras. Nanda Maharaj happened to be a Vaishya, and he accepted Gargamuni as a first-class Brahmana. He therefore offered his two foster sons, namely Krishna and Balaram, to him, that is Gargamuni, to purify. Nanda stated that not only these boys, but all human beings just after birth should accept a qualified Brahmana as a spiritual master. Upon this request, Gargamuni replied, Vasudeva has sent me to see to the reformatory performances of these boys. This word reformatory performance is samskara. We have a whole book of samskaras. Vasudeva has sent me to see the reformatory performances of these boys, especially Krishna's. But if I do so, it may incidentally appear that Krishna is the son of Devaki, since I am Vasudeva's family priest. By his astrological calculation, Gargamuni could understand, just by reading the chart, Gargamuni could understand that Krishna was the son of Devaki, which Nanda did not know. Indirectly, Gargamuni said that Krishna and Balaram were both sons of Vasudeva. Balarama was known as the son of Vasudeva because his mother, Rohini, was present there. But Nanda Maharaj did not know about Krishna. Gargamuni indirectly disclosed the fact that Krishna was the son of Devaki. Gargamuni also warned Nanda Maharaj that if he would perform the reformatory ceremony, then Kamsa, who was naturally very sinful, would understand that Krishna was the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. According to astrological calculation, Devaki could not have a female child, although everyone thought that the 8th child of Devaki was female. In this way, Gargamuni intimated to Nanda Maharaj that the female child was born of Yashoda, In this way, Gargamuni intimated to Nanda Maharaj that the female child was born of Yashoda and that Krishna was born of Devaki, and they were exchanged also. The female child, Durga, had informed Kamsa that the child who would kill him was already born somewhere else. Gargamuni stated, "If I give your child a name, and if he fulfills the prophecy of the female child to Kamsa, then it may be that the sinful demon will come and kill this child also after the name-giving ceremony. But I do not want to become responsible for all these future calamities." So he's a very cautious person, huh? Very careful, thinking it through and what the response would be. On hearing the words of Gargamuni, Nanda Maharaj said, "If there is such danger, then it is better not to plan any gorgeous name-giving ceremony. It would be better for you to simply chant the Vedic hymns and perform the purificatory process. We belong to the twice-born caste, and I am taking this opportunity of your presence, so please perform the name-giving ceremony without external pomp." Nanda Maharaj wanted to keep the name-giving ceremony a secret and yet take advantage of Gargamuni's performing this ceremony. When Gargamuni was so eagerly requested by Nanda Maharaj, he performed the name-giving ceremony as secretly as possible in the cowshed of Nanda Maharaj. He informed Nanda Maharaj, the barn or the place right next to it. He informed Nanda Maharaj that the son of Rohini would be very pleasing to his family members and relatives, and therefore would be called Rama. In the future, he would be extraordinarily strong, and therefore would be called Baladev. Bala means strong, and Rama means one who gives pleasure. Gargamuni further said further, "Because your family and the family of the Yadus are so intimately connected and attracted, his name will also be Sankarshana," drawing near, pulling together, as a name of expansion of Baladev as a cosmological feature, the force of gravity. Anyway, his name will also be Sankarshana, This means that Gargamuni awarded 3 names to the son of Rohini, namely Balaram, Sankarshana, and Baladeva. But he carefully did not disclose the fact that Balaram had also appeared in the womb of Devaki and was subsequently transferred to the womb of Rohini. Krishna and Balaram are real brothers, being originally sons of Devaki. Gargamuni then informed Nanda Maharaj, as far as your son is concerned, this child has taken different bodily complexions in different yugas, millennia. First of all, he assumed the color white, then the color red, then the color yellow, and now he has assumed the color black. The word Krishna. By the way, very technically, Kala is black, and Krishna really means dark blue, very dark blue. A lot of times in India they don't distinguish them two, but there's 2 different words for 2 different colors. So his name really does mean dark blue. I even learned that in a university Sanskrit class. They made that distinction. Besides, he has now assumed the color black. So this is he was formerly the son of Vasudeva. Therefore, his name should be Vasudeva as well as Krishna, with a long A. Just like there's a patronymic, son of, or daughter of, or servant of, or just like you take Vishnu and then you get Vaishnava. You strengthen the first syllable and then end it in the A declension. So Vasudeva is his father, so his name is Vasudeva. Some people will call him Krishna, and some will call him Vasudeva. But one thing you must know, this son has many, many other names and activities due to his different pastimes. Gargamuni further hinted to Nanda Maharaj that his son would also be called Giridhari because of his uncommon pastime of lifting Govardhan hill. Giri means a hill and Dari means holder of the hill. Since Gargamuni was an astrologer, he could understand everything, past and future, and thus he said, I know everything about his activities and names, but others do not know. This child will be very pleasing to all the cowherd men and cows, being very popular in Vrindavana. He will be the cause of all good fortune for you. Because of his presence, you will overcome all kinds of material calamities despite opposing elements. Gargamuni continued to say, My dear King of Vraja, in his previous births, this child many times protected righteous persons from the hands of rogues and thieves whenever there was political disruption. Your child is so powerful that anyone who becomes a devotee of your boy will never be troubled by enemies. Just as demigods are always protected by Lord Vishnu, the devotees of your child will always be protected by Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This child will grow in power, beauty, opulence, in everything, on the level of Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, I would advise you that you protect him very carefully so that he may grow without disturbance. In other words, Gargamuni informed Nanda Maharaj that because he was a great devotee of Lord Narayana, the Lord had given him a son equal to himself. At the same time, Gargamuni indicated that this son would be disturbed by so many demons, and that Nanda should therefore be careful and protect him. In this way, Gargamuni convinced Nanda Maharaj that Narayana himself had become his son. In various ways, he described the transcendental qualities of his son. After giving this information, Gargamuni returned to his home. Nanda Maharaj began to think of himself as the most fortunate person, and he was very satisfied to receive such a benediction in this way. A short time after this incident, both Balaram and Krishna began to crawl on their hands and knees. When they were crawling like that, they pleased their mothers. The bells tied to their waist and ankles sounded fascinating, and they would move around very pleasingly. Sometimes, just like ordinary children, they would be frightened by others and would immediately hurry to their mothers for protection. Sometimes they would fall into the clay and mud of Vrindavan and would approach their mothers smeared with clay and saffron. They were actually smeared with saffron and sandalwood pulp by their mothers, but due to crawling over the muddy clay, they would simultaneously smear their bodies with clay. So the saffron and the sandalwood pulp was already there, and they added mud to it. As soon as they would come crawling to their mothers, Yasoda and Rohini would take them on their laps and, covering them with the lower portions of their saris, allow them to suck their breasts. When the babies were sucking their breasts, the mothers would see small teeth coming in. Thus their joy would be intensified to see their children grow. Sometimes the naughty babies would crawl up to the cowshed, catch the tail of a calf, and stand up. The calves, being disturbed, would immediately begin running here and there, and the children would be dragged over clay and cow dung. To see this fun, Yashoda and Rohini would call all their neighborhood friends the gopis. Upon seeing these childhood pastimes of Lord Krishna, the gopis would be merged in transcendental bliss. In their enjoyment, they would laugh very loudly. Krishna and Balaram were so restless that their mothers, Yashoda and Rohini, would try to protect them from cows, bulls, monkeys, water, fire, and birds while they were executing their household duties, always being anxious to protect the children and to execute their duties. They were not very tranquil. A lot to do. In a very short time, Krishna and Balaram began to stand up and slightly move on their legs. When Krishna and Balaram began to walk, other friends of the same age joined them, and together they gave the highest transcendental pleasure to the gopis, specifically to Mother Yashoda and Rohini. All the gopi friends of Yashoda and Rohini enjoyed the naughty, childish activities of Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan. In order to enjoy further transcendental bliss, they all assembled and went to Mother Yashoda to lodge complaints against the restless boys. When Krishna was sitting before Mother Yashoda, all the elder gopis began to lodge complaints against him so that Krishna could hear. They said, "Dear Yashoda, why don't you restrict your naughty Krishna? He comes to our house along with Balaram every morning and evening, and before the milking of the cows, they let loose the calves, and the calves drink all the milk of the cows. So when we go to milk the cows, we find no milk, and we have to return with empty pots." If we warn Krishna and Balaram about doing this, they simply smile so charmingly that we cannot do anything. Also, your Krishna and Balaram find great pleasure in stealing our stock of yogurt and butter from wherever we keep it. When Krishna and Balaram are caught stealing the yogurt and butter, they say, "Why do you charge us with stealing? Do you think that butter and yogurt are in scarcity in our house?" Sometimes they steal butter, yogurt, and milk and distribute them to the monkeys. When the monkeys are well fed and do not take any more, then your boys chide, "This milk and butter and yogurt are useless. Even the monkeys won't take it." And they break the pots and throw them hither and thither. If we keep our stock of yogurt, butter, and milk in a solitary, dark place, your Krishna and Balaram find it in the darkness by the glaring effulgence of the ornaments and jewels on their bodies. If by chance they cannot find the hidden butter and yogurt, they go to our little babies and pinch their bodies so that they cry, and then they go away. If out of fear of these naughty boys, we keep our stock of butter and yogurt high on the ceiling, hanging on a swing, although it is beyond their reach, they arrange to reach it by piling all kinds of wooden planks over the grinding machine. And if they cannot reach, they make a hole in the pot. I assume that means they take a stick and poke a hole. We think, therefore, that you better take all the jeweled ornaments from the bodies of your children. On hearing this, Yasoda would say, "All right, I will take all the jewels from Krishna so that he cannot see the butter hidden in the darkness." Then the gopis would say, No, don't do this. What good will you do by taking away the jewels? We do not know what kind of boys these are, but even without ornaments, they spread some kind of effulgence so that even in darkness they can see everything. Then Mother Yashoda would inform them, "All right, keep your butter and yogurt carefully so that they may not reach it." In reply to this, the gopis said, "Yes, actually we do so, but because we are sometimes engaged in our household duties, these naughty boys enter our house somehow or other and spoil everything. Sometimes, being unable to steal our butter and yogurt, out of anger they pass urine on the clean floor and sometimes spit on it. Now just see how your boy is hearing these complaints all day long. He simply makes arrangements to steal our butter and yogurt, and now he's sitting just like a very silent, good boy. Just see his face." When Mother Yashoda thought to chastise her boy after hearing all these complaints, she saw his pitiable face, and smiling, she did not chastise him. Another day, when Krishna and Balaram were playing with their friends, all the boys joined Balaram and complained to Mother Yashoda that Krishna had eaten clay. On hearing this, Mother Yashoda caught hold of Krishna's hand and said, "My dear Krishna, why have you eaten earth in a solitary place? Just see, all your friends, including Balaram, are complaining about you." Being afraid of his mother, Krishna replied, "My dear mother, all these boys, including my elder brother, Balaram, are speaking lies against me. I have never eaten any clay. My elder brother Balaram, while playing with me today, became angry, and therefore he has joined with the other boys to complain against me. They have all combined together to complain, so you will be angry and chastise me. If you think they are truthful, then you can look within my mouth to see whether I have eaten clay or not." His mother replied, "All right. If you have actually not eaten any clay, then just open your mouth. I shall see." When the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna was so ordered by his mother, he immediately opened his mouth just like an ordinary boy. Then Mother Yashoda saw within that mouth the complete opulence of creation. She saw the entire outer space in all directions. Mountains, islands, oceans, seas, planets, air, fire, moon, and stars. Along with the moon and stars, she also saw all the elements, water, sky, and the extensive ethereal existence. That's basically space. The extensive ethereal existence, along with the total ego and its products, namely the senses, the controllers of the senses, all the demigods and the object of the senses like sound and smell. Within his mouth she also saw the three qualities of material nature, all living entities, eternal time, material nature, spiritual nature, activities, consciousness, and different forms of the whole creation. Yashoda could find within the mouth of her child everything necessary for cosmic manifestation. She also saw within his mouth herself taking Krishna on her lap and having him suck her breast. Upon seeing all this, she became struck with awe and began to wonder whether she were dreaming or actually seeing something extraordinary, She concluded that she was either dreaming or seeing the play of the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She thought that she had become mad, mentally deranged, to see all those wonderful things. Then she thought, it may be cosmic mystic power attained by my child, and therefore I am perplexed by such visions within his mouth. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the expression of consciousness, mind, work, and philosophical speculation, and whose different energies produce everything manifested and unmanifested. Under his energy, bodily self and bodily possessions are conceived. She then said, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him under whose illusory energy I am thinking that Nanda Maharaj is my husband. I am thinking that Nanda Maharaj is my husband and Krishna is my son, and that all the properties of Nanda Maharaj belong to me, and that all the cowherd men and women are my subjects. All this misconception is due to the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord. So let me pray to him that he may protect me always. While Mother Yashoda was thinking in this high philosophical way, Lord Krishna again expanded his internal energy just to bewilder her with maternal affection. Immediately, Mother Yashoda forgot all philosophical speculation and accepted Krishna as her own child. She took him on her lap and became overwhelmed with maternal affection. She thus began to think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is understood through the processes of cultivating knowledge derived from the Upanishads and the Vedanta Sutra, practicing mystic yoga, and studying Sankhya philosophy as her own begotten child. Certainly Mother Yashoda had executed many pious activities, and as a result of which she got the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as her son who sucked milk from her breast. Similarly, Nanda Maharaj must also must have performed many great sacrifices and pious activities for Lord Krishna to become his son and address him as Father. But it is surprising that Vasudeva and Devaki did not enjoy the transcendental bliss of Krishna's childhood pastimes, although Krishna was their real son. The childhood pastimes of Krishna are glorified even today by many sages and saintly persons, but Vasudeva and Devaki could not enjoy such childhood pastimes personally. The reason for this was explained by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit as follows. When the best of the Vasus, named Drona, and his wife Dara, were ordered to create progeny by Lord Brahma, they said unto him, Dear Father, we are seeking your benediction. When we take birth again within the universe, may the Supreme Lord Krishna, in his most attractive feature of childhood, absorb our whole attention. May our dealings with him be so powerful that simply by hearing of these childhood activities of his, anyone will very easily cross the nescience of birth and death. Lord Brahma agreed to give them the benediction, and as a result, the same Drona appeared as Nanda Maharaj in Vrindavan, and the same Dara appeared as Mother Yashoda, the wife of Nanda Maharaj. In this way, Nanda Maharaj and his wife Mother Yashoda developed their unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, having gotten him as their son. All the gopis and cowherdmen who were associates of Krishna naturally developed their own different feelings of love for Krishna. Therefore, just to fulfill the benediction of Lord Brahma, Lord Krishna appeared along with his plenary expansion, Balaram, and performed all kinds of childhood pastimes in order to increase the transcendental pleasure of all the residents of Vrindavan. Thus in the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 8th chapter of Krishna, Vision of the Universal Form. Chapter 9 will be Mother Yashoda binds Lord Krishna.
thanks so much for reading this. So, if anybody has any comments or questions or reflections or anything they would like to offer to help further this discussion of this pastime, please go ahead and type it into the comment section. I was kind of happily reminded of the stress that Mother Yashoda was under, that it wasn't tranquil. and it was a good reminder that devotional service isn't always meant to be tranquil.
True.
And that there is a good level of stress to devotional service.
Good point.
Gaur Shakti Prabhu, he says, Hare Krishna Gurudev, thank you for a wonderful reading of Krishna book tonight. It is so nice to listen to while working. My question is, you mentioned that this is the second instance where the universal form is mentioned, the other being in the Bhagavad Gita. Are there any other instances in Shastra where this is mentioned?
No, the one that was mentioned was in here. That's mentioned in the Salvation of Trinavarta, that Mother Yashoda saw the universal form. So that's 3, if you count the one that Arjuna saw in the Bhagavad Gita. There's three places that I know of that the universal form is there. So the one they're talking about here, the second one, meant that it was actually spoken about at the end of after Trinavarta. She opened his mouth with her fingers, and suddenly she saw the whole universal form. So that was a kind of a little foretaste of what was then to happen later on in this chapter.
And also, as we were talking about earlier today, that the universal form that Mother Yashoda sees doesn't show the Kala Rupa like Arjuna saw.
Yeah, the Kala Rupa was one transformation of the universal form, which is really horrible to see, because you see time, and all-devouring time, killing everyone.
Kendra Prabhu writes, he says, Jai Gurudev, for a limited conditioned soul like me, it's impossible to imagine what the total ego and its products and the 3 qualities of material nature look like. Also, thanks for the down in the boondocks reference. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu says, which avatar had a red body?
I can't remember which one it was now, actually. I didn't think of it. There's actually Krishna, sort of a rainbow coalition there with all kinds of colors, but there is a Raktak. Sometimes when they say reddish, it doesn't mean that it was like fire engine red, but...
Madhavendra Puri Prabhu asks, he says, is it ever clear if Krishna eats the clay, or is it intended to be a divine mystery?
I don't know. Either way, he could eat the clay if he wanted to. If you're all powerful, you could. Sometimes clay is very nutritious. At least getting minerals and stuff like that.
Nandi Mukhi comments that it was Varsha, the red form.
The Varsha?
Varsha. Is that what you're meaning by Nandi? You can clarify for me. While that's getting clarified. Oh, Varaha. Maybe they meant Varaha. Adi Devi says it's Varaha avatar that was red.
I thought one was, there's a white one and also Yeah, it was probably red. That's right.
Adi Devi also says, Hare Krishna Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances. Many thanks for reading the Krishna book. I didn't know that Nanda Maharaj was unaware of Krishna being Devaki's son.
Yeah, that's what it says.
And Charachandra offers, he says, Varaha came in both red and white, but this form refers to another avatar.
Oh yeah. We'll have to check out which is the
Yeah, a little
which
research.
is the red one.
4 arms and performs yajna. Yeah, Charles, it says 4 arms and performs yajna. Oh, Kendra offers, he says, in Canto 11, 5th chapter, it said, quote, in Treta Yuga he is red in color and 4-armed, is the personification of sacrifice. It's characterized by the symbols of the sacrificial spoon, ladle, etc. It is called by such names as yajna and is worshipped by Vedic sacrifices. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Now that's in my mind.
That's the right one.
Thank you, Kendra.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. And just a few comments here. Akanta Bhakti says, thank you, Gurudev, with the prayer hands emoticon. And Gaurashakti Prabhu says, thank you so much, Gurudev, for your response to his question. Bhakta Lewis says, Hare Krishna, Gurudev, with a heart. And Deva Dharana says, Hare Krishna, Ravindra Svarupa, please accept my humble obeisances. And I think those are the comments.
Okay, good. So I'm looking forward to next week, Chapter 9, Mother Yashoda binds Lord Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Krishna book ki jai.